Yes, guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to ShootOut. I know you guys have been waiting for this one. You've seen what Eunice has to say. Hopefully you've seen what I have to say as well. If you haven't, check out the videos on our channels. But we are together today to revel in a victory that may not come across as like the most happy victory in the world, even though it's against Spurs, because we weren't the greatest. But Eunice and I are here together today to discuss Tottenham 1, Chelsea 4. I don't think it's possible, mate, to summarise this game in few words, but give me a few top line points as to how you felt about the win, how you felt about the performance. Like, that was just flipping mental, wasn't it? Like, what a game.
Mate, unbelievable. Listen, that was one of, if not the most craziest football matches I think I've ever seen. And it's only even more crazy when you're fully invested in it because it's one of your teams. And what we came into it expecting to happen and how we've ended up finishing it. But the way that we've ended up finishing it, it just doesn't compute. I'm still confused.
Yeah. I'm just blown away by how, like, there's so many different, like, layers to why Chelsea won. And I think, like, we've said so many good things through gritted teeth about Tottenham. And I think it's like, I think any other team in the league, when Chelsea were playing like that, all of the 19 other managers would be like, right, okay, we've got 9 men. We're against a team that have got fresh legs. They've got players that can come off the bench that can hurt us. They've got good creative players, but we know what they struggle with. How on earth does Ange have the balls to be like, no, we are still going to defend with the entire defensive line with Eric Dyer in the middle of it, bang in the middle of the park? Like, how does he think, especially, let's say it 2-1, yeah?
Yep.
How does it get higher from there? Like, how does that defensive line get higher? I don't understand.
Mate, that really, really baffled me and confused me. Massive risk. I gotta say, it almost paid off, but very, very, very. I don't want to say naive because I don't think he was naive. Postecoglou knew what he was doing. That's just how he does things. I managed to listen in on some people that were talking about Postecoglou prior to coming to Spurs, and how he was at Celtic and what they expected when he came to Spurs. And they weren't surprised that he just decided to stick with a high line even with 9 men. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, fair enough, but that is suicide. That's complete suicide. And at the end of the day, Chelsea were there to pick up the pieces despite some doubt that we might not during that game. So unbelievable game overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I've not really spoken about in the 2 videos that I've made post-match has been like the way that the reaction to the game went in terms of like football pundits and just people in football in general. What I find so weird, but maybe it's not weird because as Chelsea fans, we're used to being kind of void of praise from anybody else because we're so easy to criticize for various things. What I find absolutely mental is kind of how people are managing to rationalize and justify why Spurs deserve so much credit. Like, at the end of the day, it almost paid off that they kept playing in their style. It's admirable. It's something I've heard a lot, which I do agree with. It's admirable to keep playing that way. But like for me, I think it says a lot about how and why Tottenham won't be able to compete for leagues is because every other club that can sustain what Tottenham are trying to sustain throughout the course of a season, when plan A isn't going well, there's a plan B. And in my opinion, just revert into like a slight Plan A 2.0 would have been enough to probably get a result against Chelsea because we were so poor. But like, how does the media somehow manage to justify praising Spurs' resilience over praising Chelsea's ability to win the game 4-1? What do you think about that? Does that show just how bad maybe Chelsea were?
Half, yes. But I genuinely think, look, if people are going to praise the Tottenham players, right, that were on the pitch throughout the 90 minutes, the 9 that were left, and what they managed to do, then fair enough. I've got nothing bad to say about the 9 players that were there because they gave everything. You could see that. But tactically, Postecoglou shouldn't be praised for what he did after they went down to 9 men, or even 10. But from 10-9 onwards, it was tactical suicide. Realistically, as you said, if they're going to try and win the Premier League, They need to be able to adapt to a situation. And everyone and their mother knows that Chelsea struggle when they're facing against a team that's playing deep. Tottenham had the opportunity to just go deep and just go for a draw. And with 9 men, I feel everyone, if they did get a draw, everyone would have been like, Tottenham, that was absolutely fantastic. But Postecoglou just decided to die on his sword. And recklessly, needlessly. So to praise the players for what they had to do in terms of follow the instruction, fair play, because they took it to the very, very end, despite playing a high line on the halfway line. But to praise Postecoglou, no. I'm sorry, I think it's ridiculous. Because
I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
I think, like, in terms of everyone wants to kind of look at a game like this, which has got so many talking points in it, and it's kind of like, not only did a team beat another team, but it's kind of like a manager beats another manager. I wouldn't necessarily say Pochettino beat Postecoglou. I think Postecoglou beat himself by just being so stubborn, which I guess poses the big question from our side as Chelsea fans about Pochettino. Like, throughout that game, I'm looking on Twitter, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how on earth do you, first of all, you don't really plan to be playing against 9 men ever. It's one of those, like, tactical moments in football where I think a team has to be very aware of their qualities, very aware of who's got what role, that you then have to go and deal with what's put in front of you, which eventually Chelsea did. But my concern when I watch this game again and I think about what Pochettino was telling people to do, Enzo Fernandez, after 15 minutes, right, he apparently is trying to give a message to Pochettino as the midfielder, as one of the senior figures, I guess, in the Chelsea team, vice captain out on the pitch. Yep. He's trying to tell Pochettino, we got to change something here because this ain't working. We're getting overran. Do you think that there is currently a discord between Pochettino and what the players are trying to do? And do you think the messaging and the tactical implementation to deal with these kind of like weird, erratic situations in a given game, do you think that there's a struggle right now from the Chelsea players to take on board Pochettino's instructions?
I was going to say just that. Yeah, I don't want to say that Poch has no idea what he's doing. But it does seem
I'm not
like...
saying that either.
Yeah, it does seem like there are players that are just not executing. And 11 versus 11, we looked all over the place. Up until when they went down to 10 men. And even then, when we went down to 10, when they went down to 10, they went down to 9, we were still struggling. So I have to ask, because apparently even after scoring the second goal, Pochettino wasn't happy. He was still angry and yelling things out. And that was after we'd scored the second goal and we were looking like, that's it, we're going to go and win the game. He wasn't happy. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Because I have to, you're completely right. Is there some sort of disjointed link here between the players following what needs to be done? Or is Poch giving the right instruction? It's hard for us to tell from, watching on TV because it looked so bad, but it does look like Poch was angry and didn't like what he was seeing, correctly so. But why are we not executing? I genuinely don't know. I look more to the players because when you're playing against 9 men, I'm sorry, but there's no excuse. You don't need the manager to come and be like, yo, okay, now look, what are you doing? Or do this or do that. You've got 2 men extra space on the pitch and you're struggling. So I have to look more to the players there if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I think it's also a case of, well, when you look at that first 15 minutes, we were getting annihilated, mate. Like, that Son goal is so close to being onside, and it's a brilliant goal. So for me, it was like bloody hell here. The golfing class between the system, first of all, and the players' implementation of the system, and the players just in general, between Spurs and Chelsea, is alarming. And I think, to be quite honest, we're lucky in a way that the Spurs players completely lost their heads so early in the game. Because if they'd have had like another 10 or 15 minutes more of that early pressure before these like erratic, crazy tackles started to come in, Chelsea could have been done and dusted and buried, even if they then lost their heads and went down to 9 men. If you're 2 or 3-0 down, there ain't no way Chelsea coming back from that, because our heads are already going to be on the floor, because that's just the way that Chelsea have been. As soon as we go 1-0 down normally, like, we've got to flip in, lift a 50-kilogram weight under each boot to even stand up and move. So I think Chelsea are kind of lucky, to be honest. Like, as happy as we are, I think my biggest takeaway from this game is we are so fortunate that Udogie, Romero, Romero's just a filthy you-know-what, to be quite honest. I hate him as a footballer. And I think Udogie's a brilliant player, but he's just like 2 moments of madness. Well done to Sterling for forcing the second yellow. But like, we're so lucky that all of these things kind of kicked off so early.
Yeah, everything just fell into place. And, thankfully, towards the end, we picked up the pieces. We were doubting whether we were going to pick up the pieces, but we did in the end. One thing that I want to say about Tottenham and them losing their heads, I don't necessarily think that was from the players itself. Or like, I know Romero is rash and reckless, but there was a theme going in that game before they went down to 10 and then they went down to 9. They were just ultra aggressive, too aggressive, because they had the game under control. I think that's Postecoglou telling them, get in their faces, go crazy, go rash, but not too rash because you don't want to get your player sent off. But I feel like he wanted them to be aggressive, and that was the wrong way to take it, because you can be aggressive to an extent, but you got to have your emotional control. And if you have that, right there at 11 versus 11, Tottenham were better than us. So if they had just kept that rhythm, they would have got a result, as far as I'm concerned. But they lost their heads. They threw it away for themselves, as you said earlier on. It was them that literally just threw the game. And thankfully, we picked up the pieces towards the end. So at the end of the day, happy days. But I feel like why there's a lot of... this isn't just Chelsea fans as well. This is from others. During the game, when it was 11 versus 9, there were neutrals, and funnily enough, I had mates talking to me during the game. One Arsenal, one's a neutral, another's a neutral, and they were all going, listen, if you don't win this game, you guys are pathetic. And then throughout the game, it was just going on. We weren't scoring, and they were like, no, you guys are just pants. You guys are rubbish. And then we got the result in the end, but that precedent was set. And I feel like that's why Chelsea are not getting enough credit. It's because we stunk up the place up until the end, where we did get what we were just meant to get. We were supposed to get. So unbelievable, really unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, to be honest, because you are damn right. Up until that Nicholas Jackson second goal, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know how we're ever gonna get better. Like, I genuinely thought for the first half an hour or so, or 20 minutes of that second half, I'm like, we're finished. Like, we're absolutely finished. We're playing against 9 men. We spent all of this money. Look at these players on this pitch, and we still don't know how to put the ball in the net. Like, what more can an opposition do to facilitate Chelsea getting the win? But lo and behold, we did it in the end. So We're here to praise Chelsea. Screw what everybody else says. Screw Postecoglou. The title race for them is over. They've lost half their team to bloody injuries. Eric Dyer don't win you a Premier League title. And Chelsea are on the flipping up, mate. And I think on that, I've got nothing more to add to this one, because I have rinsed this game, and I'll keep rinsing this game for a long time. Do you have any final words before we move on and look at the other Premier League's games in the next shootout video?
Well, I want to say I can't believe that this game and the way that it went somehow could going into Manchester City be a catalyst for confidence to increase, Nicholas Jackson to get some form, because even he had a stinker but managed to get a hat-trick towards the end. It's just unbelievable how it was a complete paradox in terms of performance and result. But at the end of the day, the win is a win, and it was a 4-1 win away at Tottenham, and that's just reality. So when you look at this sort of game and the way it went down, somehow could be Chelsea's confidence booster. You couldn't write it. You just couldn't write it.
Bro, let's just call it, we're beating Man City, but by how many? Find out in Premier League predictions on Friday. This is it. Why not? Let's say it.
They got to go down to 7 men in that case. So.
No, we needed to get, like, how many players is it till you get sent off until you forfeit the game 3-0?
I think it's 5 red cards, yeah. So if they end up with 6 men, then it's done.
Fair point. On that note, we're going to wrap this one up. Premier League review. Make sure you check that video out too. It's either the one before this one or the next video on the channel. And then Premier League predictions, as always, out on Friday. We'll see you guys there.
See you then.